My speaker today is Carla Rieger. She's the CEO of the Artistry of Change, which we're all dealing with change. So she's a perfect woman to have on our show. She's an author, speaker, consultant, and motivator. So Carla, why don't you just dive in? If I miss anything, fill in the blanks and, share with us really, how do we adapt to this change in our environment right now?
Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest changes most people have ever faced in their life. And it doesn't matter how old you are, it's massive, right? And for me, I just find the better you are at reinventing yourself regularly, the better. Because whether it's a big change like this whole COVID-19 and the lockdown, or whether it's you lost your job or your relationship broke up or you get sick or whatever, you always have to completely drop everything that you were thinking you had to do and go in a new direction. And some people are kind of naturally better at it and some people aren't. And so I studied that for years because I was asked in organizations to help their leaders be more agile, to switch, to stop complaining and go, no, I want it the old way. No, we have to go in the new direction. Some people were so much more willing and ready and solutions oriented than others. So my company did a whole bunch of sort of research on it and testing and what was it going on in a person's mind that made them easily pivot and become unstoppable in a new direction and be all courageous as opposed to those who didn't. And we realized it was certain thinking habits, just habits of mind that you may already have, your listeners may already have, but sometimes you just have to dial up on them when it's like a massive change. Like you no longer have a business, you no longer have a job, you can no longer leave your house for more than 30 minutes, right? It's like, oh my gosh, and you're seeing this and you're probably noticing this with your friends and your colleagues and your families. Some people are just adapting really easily. So there's basically three things that make the biggest difference. And the first one, the first one is to be able to change your state of mind at will. And I know that sounds, for some people who've done a lot of personal growth, it's like, well, yeah, duh, of course. But for a lot of people, they're like, what do you mean? Like, don't states of mind just come at me and I have like no control over them and I have to stay upset and anxious until the outside world changes. Like, and even people who've done lots of personal growth, they forget that at any point when you're worried about your finances or you're worried about, your health, that you could change your thought, which would change your feeling, and see the world in a new way and feel more at peace by the thought you're having. And so that is not a default thing we're all taught. We're taught to be reactive to the outside world, and we're not taught to go, oh, I don't have to think that way, right? So that's the first one. And so I find a really good tip for dealing with that is to simply notice what you're thinking. Like, say you wake up in the morning and what a lot of people do is they worry, like they start to worry about what's happening in their life. And it usually comes in the form of a question like, what if I get sick? What if I can't manage financially this month? Or what if my relationship breaks up? And then so what your brain does is it starts imagining that. It starts creating it, right? What you focus on grows, right? So you have to train yourself. It's like building a muscle, right? You have to build a muscle to go, but what if I stay healthy? And then your mind starts imagining yourself staying healthy. And then you start thinking, oh, I should, get outside and get some fresh air, and I should take some good supplements and vitamins. And so you start doing things that make you healthier. What if I manage financially, what if I figure out a way to make this lockdown work for me? And you start thinking of all these great things that you could do, right? So that's a little tip. When you're lying in bed in the morning, I do it every morning. As soon as I start worrying, I go, but what if the opposite? What if the opposite? So that's a really good takeaway for tip number one. Now, tip number two is to change your perspective at will. So, and by changing your state, you help yourself change your perspective. So that means your interpretations of what's around you. And usually you have to change your state of mind first, and then all of a sudden you see the world in a new way. You start to see the glasses half full instead of half empty. As I said, like you start thinking, oh, how can I make this lockdown, work for me? How do I get online, for example? I work with a lot of people who are speakers, who are, authority entrepreneurs like you, and they're used to maybe talking live to groups, and they're like, how do I get online? Like, instead of it being like, oh, I don't know how to figure it out technically, it's like you go, oh, well, let's just figure out Zoom, and let's just figure out microphones, and let's just figure out how to be on camera. And so you start to see possibilities, and your mind starts to be more solutions oriented, and you get great ideas because you changed your state. And then the third one is to change your capacity, and they sort of roll into each other, because once you've changed your state and then you change your perspective, then you start to change your capacity. You start to jump out of bed instead of like, oh, roll out of bed. You start to go, wow, there's so many great things I could do. And you can stay focused for longer, and you can help those around you think in better ways. And you can start to problem solve more quickly and easily, because your perspective is not, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. And therefore, we could watch a brain scan, if we could have your, those little pads all over your brain, and watch what happens in your brain when you're saying, what if I can't? Or what if I don't? Or what if something bad happens? We could see all the brain energy go back into the inner core of the brain, the survival brain, the reptilian complex, and very little is on the external part of the brain, the neocortex, where all your problem solving abilities reside. But as soon as you even ask yourself that question, well, what if I could be of massive value to the world? There's a great question to ask yourself in the early hours of the morning. What if I could be of massive value to the world right now? What could I do, given where I am, given who I am, given my life experience, given my natural talents? How can I be of massive value? And you just lie in bed, and if you really still your mind, all of a sudden all these amazing ideas will come, because you've switched on the whole brain, and now your most highest capacity thinking is at play. And even if it doesn't come to you right in the morning, you'll be having your shower, or you'll be going for a walk, and all of a sudden, you'll think, oh my gosh, you know what? I could get on video, and I could start talking about, how to be unstoppable. I could tell my story for that, because that would start inspiring others in my network, which is probably what you've been doing and I've been doing. And so and then you get out there and you do it, and you start inspiring other people to think like that and to be like that, because I think, we're all connected. We're all connected. And so the more you worry, I think the more you help other people worry. And worry disguises itself as a useful emotion. And I came from a family where we called my dad in particular the beacon of doom. And he was such a worrier. He was an expert worrier. And so I thought that you had to worry in order to protect yourself from danger, right? But it never does that, because what it does is it shuts down your brain capacity and doesn't allow you to see solutions. So anytime you worry, you don't want to fight with yourself, because you'll build it that way and you'll start to get in a big war with yourself. But just kind of go, oh, thank you for sharing all your worries. And what if the opposite? What if
Mm-hmm.
I find a way to be of massive value? Go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, I love everything that you're saying. I'm just soaking it in. Like I said, I'm taking notes. And what I want to encourage people to do is, when you're saying like dreaming about your capacity, like how can I serve others, is when those ideas come to you, just act on them, right? Like, don't worry about the how yet, or don't say I can't, because if you're able to think about it, then you can, right?
Right.
And so one like just small little example was, I wanted to do this book club. I was reading a book, COVID happened, and I was like, you know what? This book would be great for people during this time. So I'm going to put together a virtual book club. And the first few meetings were just sloppy. Like, they weren't getting their readings on time and everything was just a nightmare. And showing yourself some compassion and forgiveness, and laughing at it. I was like, hey, sorry, this is a train wreck. I've never thrown a book club before, a virtual one, but we'll figure it out, And now we have, and it's great. And it's been a great resource. So I share that story so that people know, like, as you start to step into the I can, and like, how can I serve others? Don't worry about how it looks. Just keep stepping.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that example. And people get into, and I'm totally guilty of this myself, is you haven't done something in your past, excuse me, and so you think, I can't. If it's new, you say, I can't, I don't know how to do it, and you stay lost in confusion. And if you stay lost in confusion, again, if we could look at a brain scan, you totally lowered your brain capacity. So it's good. I always think it's good to do something called memory management. And this is where you think of a time where you hadn't done something before, but you decided to do it anyways. Because we all have, dozens of examples, right? Like everything from you're crawling as a toddler. Oh, I think I'll walk.
Right. Yeah. Start set. Yeah.
Like, you didn't sit there and go, but I don't know how, so I won't get started, right?
Just walk. Just do it.
You just kept trying, and you fell down, you tried, and you get down, you try. And I think a lot of people are programmed to think, if I fail, that must be a sign I'm not supposed to do it.
Right.
And I certainly got sucked into that. That's a sign. And so they give up, or maybe they try maybe 2-3 times. But anyone who's unstoppable, as I know you know, they kept going after 50, 100 tries, and it's still not working. And everybody's kind of going, don't you think you should like quit now? like they're kind of feeling sorry for you, right?
Oh yeah, raising my hand over here. Absolutely. Oh, I'm reliving memories as you're sharing this. It's brutal. It feels brutal. And you almost kind of look for it as an excuse to quit, right? You're like, oh, yep, all right, I'm not on the right path. But then there's still that feeling inside of you that's like, you're not done yet. This is hard, but you're not done yet. And every single time I was like, I'm done. It'd be like, nope, you're not. And I was like, dang it, really? Like, I thought that was for sure a done sign. And nope. And every time I stuck with it, it just got better, because you learn so much, right?
Yeah. And I think you're saying something really important, that still voice that says, no, you're not done yet. And a lot of people, they don't want to listen to that because it's uncomfortable. It's like, what? Really?
Yeah.
I think I'll just go watch Netflix. But if you listen, and the key here is not to keep doing the same thing, of course, but
right.
to course correct. Okay, what can I learn about what didn't work? I was coaching somebody on this, and she put on this live event before the lockdown, and she just spent all this money and all this time, and she wanted to put on this event, and 7 people showed up who were all her friends.
Aww.
And she just said, oh, that's a sign I'm not supposed to do it. I'm humiliated. Nobody showed up. And then, 3 people snuck out after 15 minutes.
And they were her friends? 3 of her friends?
And they were like saying, I'm so sorry that didn't work out, but maybe, this isn't the right direction for you.
Aw.
And she was like lost in that humiliation. And what was I thinking? I'm so stupid. And she was beating herself up. But she had that little voice. Do you have that little voice that says, no, you're not done yet? And she said, yes, annoyingly so. I have that little voice. And I said, well, let's make a big, and you can do this too, anyone who's listening, make a big list of everything that you think you could learn from. And so we went through and we made this big exhaustive list. Right?
She's like the whole day, the whole 3 months leading up to that. Like,
Yeah, but it was good. She went through this big long list and I said, that's great. Now you have your strategies for moving forward. So like, okay, so that didn't work. How would you do it different? That didn't work. How would you do it different? So there's a list of problems and obstacles and mistakes, but on the second column, so you have two columns right next to each other, are strategies for moving forward. So you turn it, and that's one of the best life habits anyone could ever develop is, what can I learn from this and how do I get wiser? Because you only get wiser and more experience. Like all of the people you see outside yourself who are super successful, they have that habit. And they're super successful because for every failure, they went, okay, how do I get better? 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 Exhaustively.
Yeah. I know we're making it sound, no, it's great. Like what we're talking about is these I call them my stumbling blocks that are building the foundation to a really strong endeavor, whether it's a personal one or professional one. Like you have to fail to learn the lessons if you do the exercise that you're talking about, right? Like, wow, that really didn't work, or that really didn't go the way I wanted to. So what did I learn from that? And how do I use that to now create something even stronger? Take those skills, right? Take that strategy, like you're saying, and move forward. And it's just so important to continue to grow because of those experiences. Like they're necessary.
Yeah, they're absolutely necessary. And in fact, the more you fail, the better. And most
Right.
people aren't programmed that way, right? Their survival brain is programmed to don't fail, don't make mistakes, don't humiliate yourself, get other people's approval. So you have to override that programming, which is really strong. So if you go there, don't beat yourself up, right? That's the programming that we all have. So you have to sort of work with it. It's almost like a toddler, right? Who's screaming or who's upset. It's just a primitive instinctual part of you that you need to be gentle with and slowly retrain. If you fight with it, as I said, you strengthen it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I shoot, I just lost my train of thought.
Okay.
I had so many questions, and then all of a sudden I'm like,
well, that's okay. I'll just add to that. And go ahead.
I was thinking, okay, that sort of leads into the leadership thing, right? Because one of the things that you really talk about also, in addition to, creating artistry around change, is leadership and being a strong leader in your life. And leadership also means leading yourself, not just leading others, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit on leadership, right? Like how to truly become a leader in your life so that you can be unstoppable.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the, as you said, the tools to leadership is if you can't lead yourself, it's really hard to lead others, because people monkey see, monkey do, right? They do what they're led by who you're being far more than what you say. And so, and that's why I think a lot of people get frustrated, say, with their boss or someone who's leading them, because they tell them to do something that they watch them, they go, well, you're not doing that. And it's very frustrating. So if you really want to be a leader who stands out, as much as you can, live what you're telling other people to do. Now, that said, we're all a work in progress. And so I think the problem that people have about being leaders is they're afraid of the imposter syndrome. They say, I'm going to get out there and be, like like me. I always say, well, I'm the artistry of change. I'm all about using your creativity to change. And then I'm freaking out about change, right? Like I'm worrying. I'm like, I'm an imposter, right? I can't be out there. So in those cases, you just say, look, I'm human. I'm on my journey. I do this too. And if I didn't, if I was like so perfect on this, I probably wouldn't have any compassion for everybody I'm leading. So you have one foot in the world of the people that you're leading, and you have one foot toward where you're going, and you're just sort of the front of the pack, right? You're bushwhacking and helping move people forward. So you don't have to be perfect at it. And I think that does stop people as they go, I'm not perfect at this yet, so I'll just wait.
Yeah.
Till I'm more perfect.
I'm more perfect, or I need to take this course, and I need to take that course, and I need to take this, and you never start, right? Then you just become a professional student, because you just never trust yourself just to start. So what is the best way when people are, we probably have two camps, right? The people that right now need to be led, and those who are feeling called to lead. So what is the best way? I guess you already said it. It's like, you've got to start preaching, doing your preaching, or walking your talk, right? Basically. So how can they really do that? How can they get out there and lead?
Well, I think it all starts with how you talk to yourself. It seems odd, but I just find for everyone that I coach who's a leader, and I used to teach strategies for leading, and I could teach all the strategies in the world, but if the person wasn't talking to themselves in the right way, all the strategies in the world wouldn't work. And so I ended up having to spend about 90% of my time on the inner game. There's that old book called The Inner Game of Tennis, and they have it for all the sports now, like the inner game of any sport, like golf or whatever, is now they're saying 80 to 90% of your success, and it's only 10% skill and strategy. And so I say the same with leadership, is it's how you're talking to yourself, is how you're managing your mind. And so here are a few tips I think are really important for managing your mind if you're wanting to be a leader. Is one, as I mentioned before, is like memory management, is to do it in two ways. One is a past memory, and one is what I call a future memory, which is weird to people, but a past memory is, if you want to step up as a leader, think about any time in your life you've been a leader. I remember there's that great book called What Color Is Your Parachute? And you had to list all these times in your life. And I remember I did it when I was like 18. And I felt like I've had no life experience here, but you had to list any little moment in your life where you'd been a leader, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a business leader. And so I had to think like, oh, there's that time in grade 5.
Yeah.
Where I put on a show, all the kids in the blog, right? But you could do that whatever age you are now. Just think of any time you've been a leader, even if that wasn't your title. But any time you've been a successful leader, whether you're leading your kids or your friends or helping your parents sort out something, and whether it's a one-to-one sort of you're coaching someone, that's a form of leadership, or whether you're talking to a group of people, it's both a form of leadership if you are helping a person become better than they are. You're either helping them strategically, or you're helping them with the inner game. So I call it the outer game or the inner game leadership. And so anytime you've done that and you write a story about it, and this is the important thing, because this is, the brain takes a snapshot and it stores it in like a Rolodex of like a file cabinet of memories. And mostly our survival brain trains us to remember bad experiences of anything in your life. But if you start to think, oh, I should step up as a leader, what will happen is you'll look back in your memory banks and you'll have all these memories of times you sucked as a leader.
Yeah.
they'll be at the front of the filing cabinet because your survival brain's trying to protect you from failure, mistakes, disapproval, right? And so the problem is you look back in your life and you think, man, I've just failed. But that's not true. For every one time you failed, chances are you had a bunch of successes, but your survival brain said, oh, we don't need to remember those.
Yeah.
So they go to the back of the filing cabinet. But you can retrieve them if you prompt yourself, okay, what's a time when even if it's a small little thing, what was a time where I was a good leader? I did one thing good, right? And then at first you'll go, oh, I can't think of anything. But if you keep prompting yourself, there's a part of your subconscious mind will start going through the files and go, here's one. And then you write it down, and you write it down in this way. You write it down in present tense, like you're there now. I'm 21 years old. I'm working at the Career Center. I'm speaking to a group of 10 people about how to use the computer system for finding out what would be a good career for them. And I see people nodding and smiling, and I'm feeling confident, and people give me a round of applause, and they shake my hand and said, that was very helpful, thank you.
Love it.
So it's maybe 6, 7, 8 sentences, but you're talking present tense, and you're back there at 21 years old, and you're doing all the things of a good leader. So what happens is it moves it to the front of the Rolodex. And then you add these up, and then you think, I'm going to step up and be a leader. And all you remember all these good times you were a good leader. And so you go, oh, I can do that.
I love that.
It's a way you trick your mind.
Yeah. I love that. It's interesting how, as humans, like you're saying, we're trained to think about the bad immediately. I know with my students, at the end of every day, I'd ask them, okay, what's one thing you did well and one thing you want to improve on? And they would always want to start with, I want to improve on. I go, nope, what did you do well? And sometimes we'd sit there for minutes for them to figure out one thing that they did just in that last 10-hour period of what they did well. And I think, it's just so hard, like you're saying, for people to, one, compliment themselves as well, of like, I'm actually proud of myself. And I did this well. And I think that also comes from humility, where we might err on this side of humility a little bit too much. And then we forget, like, wait, that actually was a great thing that I did today, or that was a great thing that I did back then.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up. People are afraid of being egotistical or arrogant if they start patting themselves on the back. But I like to differentiate. There's people who are arrogant. If you really think about anyone who's arrogant, the reason people don't like it is because it feels incongruent. Here they are going, oh, I'm this and I'm that. But you feel inside that they don't believe in themselves. And so what people don't like is that incongruence. It's like you're trying to plaster something over how you really feel. But a person who just says, oh no, I'm really good at that. I'm very good at listening. Like if you're in an interview, I'm good at listening. I'm very good at organizing things, and I stay focused. I tend to always be on time, and you believe it, like inside, it won't be irritating to other people because you believe it, and you're honestly feel that way. and so the trick is to, again, fill your Rolodex with memories that you are good at. Are you perfect at it every time? No, but you could honestly say you're good at something like that. Now, the other way to help yourself do that is to create a future memory. And that's because the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between past, present, future. So what you do is you put yourself into the future, like say 6 months from now, a goal that you want to achieve. So whether it's an online course or, starting a podcast or whatever, and having a bunch of episodes up there. And so you give the date, whatever is 6 months from now, like say, and you put the date and you're there, and you give yourself like a moment in time where I look online and I see my podcast has 5,000 subscribers, and I have 23 episodes, and with many with 5-star ratings, and I'm feeling proud of myself. And you want to use all the 5 senses in all your stories. So you want to say how you feel, see what you see, maybe hear what you're hearing. I hear somebody tell me, oh, that podcast episode you did was so useful for me. And so what happens is you take a snapshot in the future, and then your subconscious mind, it creates this thing called it's the reticular activation system. So it starts to change your worldview. You start looking for ways to create your podcast that has all these subscribers.
I love that.
And it's that phenomenon of when you buy a certain type of car, and then you see that car everywhere on the road, but you never noticed that car before. Because you can only pay attention to so many things. So whatever you feed your mind, it will narrow on that. So if you're feeding your mind with, I'll never amount to anything, that's what you'll see in the world, is everything looks like a non-opportunity. Everything looks like a barrier. But if you're saying to yourself, no, I can do this, I see myself there in 6 months, I see this being successful, you start to see, oh, somebody's teaching about how to run a podcast. Oh, somebody is, going to help me with it. I see somebody to hire, right? That's what you start to see. So that's really important for mind management.
Yeah, I love that. People will say that's like the energy or coincidences, right? But it's really just, coincidence. I love this saying. It was coincidences or God's way of remaining anonymous, right? Not cute. So it's like, if you put it out there, your energy in a positive way, you're going to get more of that. And you're going to get more of the bad stuff if you put that out there too. So really being aware of what you're focusing on, I think, is just so key. And I love this exercise. Like I'm totally writing myself a story 6 months from now, because I'm pivoting, and I have big goals in this new stage of my life, this new change that I'm so excited about. And I'm really excited to see what it looks like in 6 months. And I get to create that. Like, how freaking amazing is that? That's amazing. I love this. I love this exercise.
Yeah. And what most people do is they'll do that maybe on New Year's Day, right? And then they think about it once, and then they never think about it. So the key is to do something, focus on it regularly, something that's going to make you focus on it regularly, and to stick to the same vision. Because what a lot of people do, and I've done this myself, is I'll go, okay, I want this podcast that's going to have this many subscribers. And I go, maybe I want a YouTube channel, and I want this many, or, like you start changing all the parameters, and then the subconscious mind goes, oh, I thought you wanted that. Okay, you want that. Oh, you want that. And then you dilute the power. So you have to, for that 6 months, pick something, be very careful what you pick, because, as you say, be careful what you ask for, you will get it. So be very careful what you ask for, and then stay focused there, keep yourself in track. And then even if you don't make it in 6 months, that's what the other people do. So they go, oh, I'm bad at this, or this doesn't really work because it's been 6 months and it didn't happen. But sometimes, there's another higher power at play here, that maybe you're not ready to have that in 6 months, or maybe, it was a stepping stone for you to do something else. And so you have to also be open to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Changing.
And also asking yourself the honest question, did I actually put it all in, like all of me into it, right? Because it's not enough just to be like, all right, this is what I want, and now I'm going to sit back and Netflix. Like, you got to put the time and the energy into it. And if you can legitimately, honestly say, like, I gave it my heart of heart and all of my effort and time, and it didn't happen, then that's when you get to check back in and go, maybe the timing is never your timing, right? Like, always on his timing. And so also trusting that too. It doesn't mean you stop. It means you keep moving forward, but maybe the timing is not right, because God knows best when it's the perfect timing to launch your podcast. Like, don't question that. Just keep putting the time and effort into it. If you still feel like that's true to your heart and true to what you genuinely want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Carla, so let's go ahead. Do you have final words of wisdom? Although those were great words of wisdom. Also, let us know where we can find you, and if you have a free gift for the audience?
Yeah, you can go to artistryofchange.com, and I have a whole bunch of free tools you can get there. A tool I would love to share with people here that's free. It's a 5-day free trial course of what I call the Memory Imprint Journal. And it runs you through how to create those little past, present, and future stories to build up the Rolodex. I call it also a gratitude journal on steroids, because everyone knows gratitude journals are good. Not everyone, but I find them to be useful. But so there's an aspect of the journal where you're also focusing on what you appreciate about yourself and life, to sort of, that primes the wheels for the story. But there's also part of it where you talk about evidence of core beliefs being true. And what I mean by core belief is we're all, I think, working on, sort of building our confidence, building our self-esteem, or stuff that maybe isn't very strong for you. So for example, right now I'm working on being more focused and less scattered during my day, so that I stay prioritized. And so mostly, because you'll always look for what you're not doing right, because that's what the survival brain does. So it forces me to go, what did I do today that was focused? And so it builds my belief in myself that I can do that. And in the end, your belief is everything. Like, if you believe you can do something, that's most of the work right there. But you have to sort of trick your brain into believing it. And so that's what it does. The Memory Imprint Journal 5-day trial. And if you like it, you can get the 30-day, but 5 days, see if you like it. It's very, very powerful for being unstoppable.
I'm muted for some reason. Thank you, Carla, so much. I love that. I love your gift, as you know, because I'm already going to get started on it. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for giving us easy, actionable tools that we can absolutely apply immediately to see positive changes in our life, regardless of situation. Because if it's not COVID, it's going to be something else. So having these tools we can pull out of our back pocket is invaluable. And I just thank you so much for giving and for being here. So in general, in the world, so that you can be a beacon of creativity and all of that, artistry of change, right? So thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this show and this project, because the more people who are doing stuff like this, the better the world is.
Yes, I hope so. I believe it so much. It's what's on my heart right now. And so again, just step into whatever is on your heart. Do not be afraid. If you can think it, you can achieve it. Just keep trying and don't worry about the stumbling blocks, because they truly are your path to just nailing it perfectly, perfectly in quotations if you're not watching this right now. So